can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard. My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart.
Vale. Me tengo que ir como poniendo así, pasando por al lado de las letras.
I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that I
now pronounce you husband and wife. You may just try.
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Un gesto que no voy a repetir y vais y lo hace.
The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent.
¡Ulo! Se lo rompo todo.
The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
Madre mía. Sí, está guapo, Está guapo. A mí también me gusta. Lo compré en Steam. A ver, bueno, empezó a caer el diluvio pero a nadie le preocupaba. O sea, primero acabar la tienda. Ah. Vale.
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder."
¡Ulo!
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't, until we found you.
Vale. Ya tenemos a Gus.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Vale. Vale, falta el down, ¿no? Bueno, vamos a ver qué hay más por aquí. Una puerta sellada, como no.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get. She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay. Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
¿Cuál hago este? Vale,
my mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English.
Vale. Este supongo que es para bajar, ¿no? Vale. Pues vamos a volver a subir. Pensaba que iba a pasar otra cosa. Pero bueno. Continuamos subiendo. Vale.
Lewis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Vale. Este es el niño que había en la cama ese. Bueno,
And
no.
to see kids in the house again. The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that. And for a while, things were good. Almost normal.
Lewis. Vale.
But it didn't last.
Mira qué vistas tú.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Vale. No se puede ir por otro lado. Vale, quiero ver si hay algo por aquí. Pues no. No aparece. Buah, vaya habitación. Con una maqueta y todo, madre mía. What? Madre mía, pero castillo, tú, madre mía. A ver la historia de Milton. A ver qué nos cuenta.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Ah, tengo que ir. Hostia, qué guapo. Tengo que ir moviéndolo así. Qué guapo. Parece que le gustaba hacer esto al Milton. El pincel mágico. Vale, ya tenemos a Milton.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Nos quedan poquitos ya. No sé qué pasará cuando los tenga ahora todos. No sé si habrá algo raro o se acabará directamente. Vale, pues para abajo. Ahí, me deja interactuar.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Vale.
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
Vale. Supongo que hay que volver otra vez, ¿no? Mira, por aquí arriba. A ver qué tal.
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
Vale, a ver qué nos espera ahora. que esto es una mansión, tú. Esto es enorme. Así que esta familia representa que son ricos, o sea que normal que esto sea así tan grande. Esta familia es una familia
Lewis's
importante
room
de la
smelled
ciudad.
very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Vale, esto es de Lewis. No, me he equivocado. Esto es de Lewis entonces. Bueno, quiero entrar. Yo me he salido sin querer.
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Ojo, chica gamer, ¿puede ser? A ver qué hay aquí de Lewis. Hay de Down. ¿Qué le escribió a Lewis?
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life.
¡Oh! ¡Córtale, córtale! ¡Venga! Hostia,
He
tío.
kept working at the
Mira,
cannery,
mira. ¡Fua! Hostia.
but he withdrew part of himself. In our
¿A quién le
sessions,
gusta
I saw
trabajar
the
en
same
esto, tío?
behavior.
¿Quién trabaja en esto?
His mind began to...
Su mente, claro, su mente ya, después de tanto esto, te acabas ya, que tu mente ya no puede más.
wander.
Ah, que soy yo este.
I asked him to describe it.
Y de mientras, mira, yo muevo al personaje ahí del dibujo y muevo a esta pava de...
He said he
y muevo al
started
pescado
small.
este.
Imagining a labyrinth.
Habrá algo por aquí. No.
He'd feel his way about. Then something moved.
Es que es difícil porque tengo que mover a la muchacha esta que corta de esto y al dibujo.
And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head.
Vale, Max. ¿A qué hora más o menos? ¿A qué hora?
He took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more.
Ok, Max. Pero, ¿te importa que también grabe en plan un vídeo para mi canal y ponga jugando contigo?
I worried about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss,
Ok, Max.
but he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend.
Un perro, ¿qué es esto? Bueno, mira, aquí tenemos compañía.
On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick.
Dale duro con la música.
Then he made musicians.
No sé qué está pasando ahí. Mira, 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 ¿qué es esto?
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the
En
cannon,
este trabajo acaba el loco al final.
but his
Porque es que
chopping
es
was as
sangre,
reliable as ever.
matar y todo el rato hacer lo mismo.
Then
O sea,
one
no
day it
puedes
struck
acabar bien
him
haciendo este trabajo.
that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
¿Cómo no va a ganar si es un mundo, tío?
They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality.
Es difícil manejar este arte.
Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on.
O sea, el chaval acabó súper mal de la cabeza.
In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a
Una apuesta reina, yo lo siento,
handsome queen.
pero me quedo con la reina. Mi hermano, ¿para qué si tengo una reina? Por lo bonita que debería ser.
The queen was on her own quest for
Obviamente, un arco.
radiant rainbows.
Si fuera un dragón, entonces el dragón, pero una serpiente, yo me quiero una serpiente. ¡Ole!
He followed the sound of her
Arpa de plata, obviamente.
silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound. He knew the world was all in his imagination.
No puedo más, no puedo mover los peces. Ahí al mismo tiempo hacer esto. Se me están acumulando ya los peces.
But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Hostia, qué guapo, ¿eh? Esta transición. Qué guapa. Por fin ya no tengo que acordar salmón. Vale, a ver.
He began to forget the world we know. I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Pero este chaval acabó muy mal, o sea, muy mal. Es que quién no, también te digo. Tu mente acaba...
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt. I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on inviting me. Waited, holding his crown.
Reina, ven aquí.
There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head.
Hostia.
Rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
A ver, resumen. Acabó tan mal que ya no podía más y se suicidó. Una bonita historia con un trágico final.
My brother was really cool.
Lewis.
I wish you could have met him.
Vale, nos quedan ya. Vale, voy a hacer algo. Nos queda Edith y Dawn. Ojo, no he hecho mucho progreso.